Recently, Arizona passed the sweeping illegal immigration law, SB 1070. Would you support similar legislation in New Hampshire, and why or why not? And a follow-up on, well, let's go with that.
Okay, thank you. I certainly will, or would. First of all, this is about sovereignty. It's about the 10th Amendment. You know, this is a great amendment of our Constitution. We can't forget it. I, as a prosecutor, again, have handled cases in the past where the federal government has abdicated its responsibility. I've seen it firsthand. We've made arrests in communities where there were drug offenders, and we were able to get them ready to be prosecuted. Then the federal government would come in, and then the next thing you know, then a few months down the road, you'd see them on the streets again. And they were illegal immigrants. And if the federal government's not doing its job, the state has the 10th Amendment to do its job and enforce their own rule of law. And that's what the Constitution is all about, and that's what Arizona is doing. And yes, we need to support that. But you know, New Hampshire, if you remember, a few years ago, there were a couple police chiefs that decided to use the criminal trespass law. And it went to the Supreme Court, or the Superior Court, I believe, at the time, and the court kicked it out and said it was unconstitutional. That our own police officers in this great state couldn't enforce our own laws. The federal government is not doing its job. As a governor, I would be outspoken to make sure we protect that 10th Amendment. And again, when we talk about the 10th Amendment, I asked Governor Lynch a few months back, or a few weeks back, to join the lawsuit for Obamacare. This is the first thing I will do when I'm elected governor, to make sure the Attorney General, if not the Attorney General, my own attorney, files and joins that lawsuit. That's all about sovereignty. And that's what we need to make sure we protect, because New Hampshire is unique, it's special, and it's about our constitutional values as much as anything.
John, if you'll hold 1 minute, I'll have a follow-up on this. Should a city or town in the state of New Hampshire declare themselves a sanctuary city, what actions would you take in support or opposition to that city's proclamation?
Again, I would be one governor that's going to support what I believe, making sure that you are here legally and that the towns and the cities comply with the law, the rule of law. There's a right way and there's a wrong way. And we simply cannot condone or allow the wrong way to be the way that we just find acceptable. And that's not something I would support.
Karen?
Can I start off with the question first?
Sure. Recently, Arizona passed a sweeping illegal immigration law. Would you support similar legislation in New Hampshire? Why or why not?
Well, it's interesting that, yes, I would support similar legislation in the state of New Hampshire. It's interesting that all the state of Arizona did was improve their existing law, which is a mimic of the federal law. And all Governor Brewer was doing was asking the federal government to enforce their law. If they were not going to, she was doing what she should do, which is to enforce her law. The governor is supposed to protect the borders of the state of which they are governor.
In the follow-up, should a city or town in the state of New Hampshire declare themselves a sanctuary city, what actions would you take in support or opposition to that city's proclamation?
It's about doing the right thing. It's about leading. And I would absolutely say, no, I'm sorry, that is not something that is allowed in our state. When you have an errant child, you don't let them go ahead and break the rules of the house and thumb their noses at you when you know that what they're doing is wrong. The same thing applies to our state. We cannot allow cities to break the law and allow illegals that are going to hurt our businesses and to hurt our students and our families in this state. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Frank, same question to you.
First, about sanctuary cities, absolutely against it. As far as illegal immigrants, I lived in New Mexico, worked out of El Paso, Texas. They walk right over the border. They don't have to do anything. They take drugs and they put them in a house over the Rio Grande that you can walk in. The Rio Grande's not like the Hudson River or the Merrimack River. So it goes on. The Border Patrol is a waste of your tax dollar money. I've watched it. When somebody asks me if I'm a U.S. citizen, and they hear my voice and they hear an accent like that, I ask them, do you think I'm from Honduras? I've watched trucks that bring drugs across the border, and I would absolutely support that governor. Absolutely. The other thing I would do as a governor is say, this is the United States of America. We need to stop businesses from hiring illegal immigrants. How does it happen? How come nobody ever did anything about it? Oh, I went to NYU, remember? What happens, I believe, that money that they work with a false ID or social security card, they pay taxes. Who gets the taxes? The federal government. If they go to retire, what happens? They can't get the money. Let's stop it. It can be done. When I lived in New Mexico, there was a truckload of people coming through. Well, it was drugs coming through. By accident, the dog got out of the building. They know who's doing what. There's a big stop on it. I would stop it. Right here in New Hampshire on 89 and up the road here on 93, there's Border Patrol. Absolutely, we need to stop it. And any business, and I'm sure they would agree, that's hiring illegals, we need more than a social security card because anybody can fix it. And the federal government's going to keep that money and do whatever they want to do with it. It needs to stop.
Thank you, Frank. Jack?
This is all about the rule of law, and it's also about national security. Those are the two big issues right now, particularly in the border states. So I definitely back up Jan Brewer. I've been saying it out loud since she's passed the law. I've read it, and one of the things that nobody's talking about is the direct effort that's going towards small businesses and large businesses that have been hiring illegals. It's like what Frank was talking about. They're doing it, and they're doing it in a large way. So they're going in, if they get a complaint, and they got 3 days, the businesses, to answer the questions. If they don't, they pull the certificate on the job that they're on. If they, in fact, don't resolve it, they pull their right to do business in the state of Arizona, period. That's a great step that they've taken, and I think it's already working. You're seeing people leave. You got to take and disincentivize these people from coming here. The other thing, though, that I would say to you is I would absolutely cut off any welfare, zero. Any illegals would get nothing. You've got to take them away from the trough. That's what's going on. And I do want to say, states' rights, 10th Amendment, paramount. In the coming months, in the coming years, to me, that's where it's going to be. Taking back our country is what's going to be the focus. The states are the ones that are going to have to do it. You're going to have warriors as governors. Chris Christie comes to mind. Jan Brewer comes to mind. And I tell you, Bobby Jindal does too. He's a guy that's standing tall down there against all odds. And he finally just said, I'm going to do what's right for my state, and you can put me in jail if you want. That's what has to happen with the governors. You get a plurality of governors, 40, 42, 43, that agree and push back at the federal government, you'll lock them up. And that's what has to happen. Thank you.
Jack, before you sit down, I'd just like to follow up with that. Should a city or town in the state of New Hampshire declare themselves a sanctuary city, what actions would you take in support or opposition of that city's proclamation?
No, I would be completely against that, obviously, based on what I just said. And I would absolutely have legislation to push for it passed to make sure that that ends. Thank you.